pushed by my own son, the family secret that killed us. Hilda. Narrating, calm but emotional. My name is Hilda. I'm 60 years old, and what I'm about to tell you will forever change the way you see your own family. Because 3 days ago, my own son, Damien, and his wife, Melissa, pushed my husband Henry and me off a 90-foot cliff. Pause, sound of a faint gasp. Wind as I lay there, broken and bleeding at the bottom of that gorge. I heard my husband's whisper, soft and desperate, "Hilda, don't move, play dead." And even though every bone in my body screamed with pain, I obeyed him, because I knew if Damien realized we were still alive, he would come back to finish the job. But that wasn't the worst moment. The worst moment came long before that, the night Henry confessed the truth he'd been hiding for 25 years, a truth that made me realize I had never really known my family at all. Sound fades into soft piano. Birds chirping for 40 years. Henry and I had what people in town called the perfect life. A cozy little house on Maple Street, a front porch covered in a kitchen that always smelled like coffee and cinnamon. I worked as a teacher at the local elementary school, 2nd grade. Every afternoon, I came home with drawings my students made for me, and stories about their innocent, messy little lives. Henry owned a small carpentry shop on Main Street. He had those rough, steady hands that could take a plain plank of wood and turn it into something beautiful. A cradle, a table, a chair, everything he touched became a memory. We had 2 boys, Richard, our firstborn, and Damien, 5 years younger. Richard was the heart of our home, always smiling, always helping his father in the shop. He was the kind of son every mother dreams of, gentle, responsible, and kind. Damien was different, quiet, reserved. He spent hours alone, reading or tinkering with things, but I loved him just as much. You never choose favorites as a mother, or at least, you convince yourself that you don't. On Sundays, after church, the 4 of us would sit around the oak table Henry carved himself. Richard would talk about his plans, how he wanted to study engineering, build houses for people who couldn't afford them. Damien would just sit there, silently poking at his food, his eyes fixed somewhere far away. Sometimes I'd reach across the table, touch his hand, and say, "Sweetheart, are you all right?" He'd always give the same answer, a faint smile, and a quiet, "I'm fine, Mom." And I believed him, because I wanted to. Our life was small, but it was happy. In the evenings, Henry and I would walk the trail behind our neighborhood, holding hands, talking about the future, about retirement, about grandkids, about how we'd grow old together. I never imagined those walks were preparing us for the one that would almost kill us. On weekends, our house came alive. My sisters, Harriet and Irene, would visit with their families. The house would fill with laughter, the smell of pies baking, the sound of children running down the hallway. Henry would fix something in the yard with my brothers-in-law, while Harriet and I gossiped in the kitchen. After 40 years of marriage, Henry still brought me wildflowers from the roadside. We still danced in the kitchen sometimes when no one was watching. He was my partner, my home, my whole heart. But happiness, as I learned, often hides the deepest tragedies. When Richard turned 20, something shifted in our home. He and Damien began arguing more, whispers behind closed doors, sudden silences when I entered a room. I told Henry about it one night, and he just smiled. "They're brothers," he said. "It's just rivalry. It'll pass." I wanted to believe that. I needed to. Then came that October night, the night Richard didn't come home. We waited. First an hour, then 2, then 5. By dawn, the police and half the neighborhood were out searching. They found him the next morning, at the bottom of the river gorge, the same gorge where Henry and I would later fall. They said it was an accident, that he must have slipped in the dark. I believed them, because the truth, the real truth, was too horrifying to imagine. Rain sound effect, slow, heavy. Richard's funeral was the darkest day of my life. I wore my black dress, the one I'd worn at my mother's funeral. Damien was calm, too calm. While I wept until my throat burned, he stood silently by the coffin, staring at his brother's face. I remember thinking he looked lost, but now I know that expression for what it was: guilt. Henry never left my side that day. He held me when my legs gave out. He whispered, "We'll get through this, Hilda." But I could feel his body shaking too. Now I know why. Daughter Richard's death. Damien changed. He became the perfect son. He helped with chores. He fixed things around the house. He brought me flowers, hugged me more often, told me he loved me. I thought it was his way of grieving, that he was trying to fill the empty space Richard had left. But what he was really doing was wearing a mask of kindness, hiding the monster underneath. Years passed. We learned to live with the pain, even if it never truly went away. Damien met Melissa, a lovely young woman from the next town. She was charming, polite, the kind of daughter-in-law you dream of having. They married, had 2 children, and for the first time in years, our home was full of laughter again. Melissa called me Mom. She helped in the kitchen. She brought gifts on holidays. She looked like an angel, but angels can have sharp wings. When Damien opened his own carpentry business, Henry was so proud. He even lent him money to get started. Just like his old man, Henry said with that big grin of his, we thought we had finally rebuilt our family. But all that happiness was a lie. Every smile, every hug, every Sunday dinner, all of it was an illusion leading to that cliff. The first cracks appeared 6 months ago, when Henry and I decided to update our will. We'd saved our whole lives, the house, a bit of land from my parents, our bank savings around $200,000 in total. It was Damien who suggested it. Mom, Dad, he said one afternoon, sitting at our table with Melissa's hand on his, you're both 60 now. You need to get things in order. We just want to help. He smiled, that sweet, innocent smile I'd seen since he was a boy, and Melissa added softly, we love you both so much. We just want to make sure you're protected. I felt touched and foolishly grateful. We went to see our old lawyer, Albert, a kind man who had known our family for years. He explained our options: a trust, a divided inheritance, or a traditional will. That's when Damien said it. Why don't you just make Melissa and me your main heirs? We'll handle everything. You can trust us. He said it so casually, but something in his tone made my stomach twist. Henry didn't notice. He nodded, smiled, and said, that makes sense. I signed those papers with a trembling hand, not realizing I was signing our death sentence. That night, as I cooked dinner, something felt wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a terrible mistake. Henry told me to stop worrying. They're our kids, Hilda. They love us. And I wanted to believe that, because the alternative was too painful.
The human being is a creature of illusions, and none is more seductive than emotion. For emotion feels like truth, immediate, vivid, undeniable. When we are angry, the world is unjust. When we are afraid, danger is everywhere. When we are in love, eternity is possible, but feeling something does not make it real. It only makes it personal. Emotion is not the reflection of reality. It is the reflection of your interpretation of reality. It is the language through which the subconscious speaks to you, often inaccurately, often destructively. And yet, men worship emotion as if it were divine revelation. The Machiavellian mind does not deny emotion, but it refuses to kneel before it. He knows that emotion is a signal, not a scripture, a tool, not a truth. He listens, but he does not obey. Most of the suffering in human life comes from misreading emotional language. People assume that the intensity of a feeling equals the accuracy of its message. But in truth, emotion only measures attachment, not understanding. The more attached we are to a person, an idea, a comfort, the stronger our emotions around it. But attachment distorts perception. It blinds us to facts and chains us to fantasy. The Machiavellian, therefore, practices detachment not as coldness, but as clarity. He stands one step back from his feelings and observes them like a strategist observing a battlefield. He knows that every emotion, no matter how overwhelming, passes, and that the decisions made in its heat are often those most regretted. This is why the world admires passion, but rewards discipline. For passion ignites, but discipline sustains. Emotion starts the fire, but reason directs the flame. There is a profound strength in emotional invisibility, the ability to feel deeply but reveal nothing. This strength confuses the sentimental man, who equates expression with authenticity. But expression is not authenticity, it is exposure. And exposure in the wrong environment is weakness. Machiavelli understood that every emotion shown is a weapon surrendered. To the manipulative, your anger becomes a lever, your love a chain, your guilt a door. He who displays his heart too openly gives others the map to his ruin. Therefore, concealment is not deception, it is defense. It is the wisdom of knowing that your inner life is sacred territory, not public property. To master emotion is to master time. For emotion always demands immediacy. Act now, speak now, feel now. But the Machiavellian waits. He lets emotion reveal its nature before he responds. He knows that time is the great dissolver of illusions. What feels eternal today will seem trivial tomorrow. The untouchable mind has learned the art of waiting, not with apathy, but with power. Waiting is not weakness. It is strategy. It allows emotion to burn itself out before it burns you. The modern world despises waiting. It celebrates reaction, outrage, speed. Every second must be filled. Every opinion must be voiced. In such a culture, silence becomes rebellion, and that is precisely why the Machiavellian cultivates it. He withdraws into silence not to escape emotion, but to watch it die on its own. He knows that no storm lasts forever, and no feeling is final. This understanding creates a terrifying calm, the kind of calm that unnerves the emotional masses. They cannot understand how one can feel and yet remain unmoved, how one can care and yet remain composed. But the Machiavellian does not need to prove his depth by display. Depth proves itself in endurance. In the world of illusion, he becomes invisible, not because he hides, but because he does not react. And the world only sees those who react. Those who respond with silence, with stillness, with deliberate thought. They disappear from the noise and move freely through it. To be emotionally untouchable is not to be indifferent. It is to be unreachable by manipulation. It is to have felt everything and yet remain the master of what you express. It is to love without losing clarity, to suffer without losing purpose, to win without losing humility. The Machiavellian does not ask the world to understand his silence. He only ensures that his silence is not emptiness, but control. And in that control lies the greatest secret of all. The one who governs his emotions governs his destiny. Emotion can destroy empires. History is filled with kings undone by love, generals ruined by pride, nations shattered by outrage. But emotion can also build when placed under rule. The same passion that destroys can be turned into devotion. The same anger that burns can fuel transformation. The same fear that paralyzes can sharpen vigilance. The Machiavellian does not kill emotion. He trains it like a falcon that hunts on command, but never on impulse. For the untrained mind, emotion is chaos. For the trained mind, it is currency. Every human interaction is a transaction of emotion, attention, respect, guilt, admiration, fear. To understand this is to see through the fabric of social reality. To master it is to rise above it. The Machiavellian knows that emotion governs the herd. They are led not by truth but by feeling. They vote by it, buy by it, hate and love by it. He does not condemn this, he uses it. Not out of cruelty, but out of comprehension. He speaks to emotion without surrendering to it, influences without believing, leads without losing himself. He has learned the sacred balance between empathy and authority, to understand human weakness without becoming weak. In this lies the paradox of the untouchable mind. It feels deeply but acts coldly. It loves without illusion, fights without hatred, grieves without despair. To live this way is not to be less human, but more aware. It is to see that emotion is the servant, not the sovereign, a wild energy that, when mastered, becomes the heartbeat of power. And power, in the truest sense, is not domination over others, but mastery over the forces within. It is the art of standing unmoved in a world that trembles at shadows. So the Machiavellian mind walks among men, smiling, calm, inscrutable. He feels the same storms that others feel, but he chooses when to let them break. For he knows emotion uncontrolled is slavery. Emotion mastered is sovereignty.
I remember the night after we signed the will. It was raining, the kind of cold, steady rain that feels like it's washing something away. Henry was quiet, too quiet. He just sat in his chair by the window, staring into the dark. I thought maybe he was tired, or maybe thinking about Richard again, but when I touched his shoulder, he flinched. "Henry, what's wrong?" He turned to me slowly, eyes heavy, face pale. "Hilda," he said softly, "there's something I should have told you a long time ago." Music fades in, soft, tense strings. I froze. I'd been married to this man for 40 years. We shared everything, our dreams, our grief, our secrets. At least, I thought we did. "What do you mean?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. He just sighed, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to warm them, even though the fire was burning strong. Then he whispered, "It wasn't an accident, Hilda." Thundercrack. Brief silence. I didn't understand. What wasn't an accident? He looked up at me, eyes full of tears. "Richard's death." The room started spinning. I sat down slowly, clutching the armrest. "What are you saying?" He took a long breath. And then, like a dam breaking, the truth poured out. "Henry," his voice trembling, "that night, Richard and I argued. He wanted to tell you something about Damien. Something terrible. But I stopped him. I told him not to ruin the family. He said he couldn't stay silent anymore. He stormed out, said he was going to the police." Henry swallowed hard, tears streaming down his face. I followed him. "Hilda, I just wanted to talk, just to calm him down." He looked away, his voice cracking, but we struggled near the cliff. He slipped. I tried to grab him. God knows I tried, but he fell. Hilda narrating. My chest went cold. My whole body started to shake. "You're saying you killed our son?" He shook his head violently. No, it wasn't like that. It was an accident, but I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. Damien saw me come home that night. He knew. He's used it against me ever since." Music swells. Slow, haunting piano. That's when everything fell into place. The tension between the boys, the way Damien changed after Richard's death, the quiet power he suddenly had over his father, the money, the will, all of it. Damien had been blackmailing his own father for 25 years. I wanted to scream, to hit Henry, to hate him, but when I saw him trembling, his hands clutching mine, I couldn't. He was my husband, my partner. He had carried this guilt for decades, and it had been eating him alive. We cried together for hours that night, two old people drowning in secrets we could never undo. Sound, ticking clock, late night ambience. When the tears finally stopped, I looked at him and asked, "What did Richard want to tell me? What was Damien hiding?" Henry's eyes darkened. "I don't know. He wouldn't say, but it was something big, something that could destroy Damien's life, maybe even ours." He looked down at his shaking hands. "I thought I was protecting us. I didn't know I was protecting a monster." The next morning, I couldn't look at Damien the same way. He came by, all smiles, holding a basket of fresh muffins Melissa had baked. "Morning, Mom," he said cheerfully. "Dad around?" I forced a smile. "Yes, he's in the shed." He kissed my cheek, left the basket on the counter, and walked outside. I watched through the window as he stood near Henry, smiling, talking. But something in that smile was different now. It wasn't warmth, it was control. And I realized then, Damien didn't just want forgiveness. He wanted power. Transition sound, door closing, distant echo of hammering days, turned into weeks. Henry became a ghost of himself, quiet, nervous, always glancing over his shoulder. Damien started dropping by more often. Too often. He began asking questions about the will, about our savings, about whether we had any insurance. Melissa would smile sweetly, playing the innocent daughter-in-law, but her eyes followed every word like a hawk. Then, one day, she slipped. We were having tea in the garden when she said, "You know, Mom, you and Dad are lucky to have Damien. He'll make sure your property doesn't go to waste." I smiled faintly. "What do you mean, doesn't go to waste?" She blinked, then laughed it off. "Oh, you know, just that he'll take care of everything when the time comes." The time comes. Those words rang in my ears all night. Soft wind, rustling leaves. I tried to tell Henry that I didn't trust them anymore. He agreed, but there was fear in his eyes. "He'll destroy me, Hilda," he whispered. "If I speak, he'll tell everyone what I did. They'll put me in prison." I touched his face. "We'll find another way." But deep down, I knew there wasn't one. Damien had trapped us both. Then, 2 weeks later, the letter arrived. No return address, just our names, written in neat block letters. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It read, "I know what happened to Richard. You both will pay for what you did, soon." No signature. Henry went white. He tore it up immediately. "It's a prank," he said, his voice trembling. "Just forget it." But that night, I found him sitting by Richard's photo, whispering, "I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry." Thunder rolls, slow, heavy tension. Music builds. The next day, Henry disappeared. I woke up, and his side of the bed was cold. His truck was gone. His phone too. Hours passed. I called Damien. No answer. By evening, I was pacing the floor, heart pounding in my throat. At sunset, the door creaked open. Henry stood there drenched, pale, eyes hollow. "Where were you?" I asked, voice breaking. He looked at me and whispered, "I went to the cliff." "Hilda," I froze. He dropped something onto the table, a bundle of old photos. They were water damaged. The edges curled. They showed the river gorge. And something else. A shape in the shadows. A person, watching from behind a tree. "Who took these?" I asked. Henry looked down. "Damien. He said he found them years ago. He threatened to show them to the police if I didn't give him everything." That was the final straw. I couldn't stay silent anymore. If Damien was capable of blackmailing his own father for decades, who knew what else he could do? I decided to confront him, not as a mother, but as someone who finally saw the truth. Sound car starting, distant rain transition to next scene. It was a Friday afternoon. I drove to Damien's workshop. Melissa was there too, smiling, as always. "Ma, what a surprise," she said brightly. "Where's Damien?" "In the back. He's cutting wood for a new order." I walked past her before she could stop me, and there he was, in his element, sawdust clinging to his shirt, humming softly. When he saw me, he smiled. "Mom, you should have called." I slapped him. The sound echoed through the room. His face went cold. The smile vanished. "Don't ever touch me like that again," he hissed. "Tell me the truth," I said. "Did you blackmail your father?" He stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed, a low, bitter laugh. "You finally figured it out, huh?" My heart sank. "So it's true." He leaned close, eyes burning. "I didn't kill Richard, Mom. But maybe Dad did. And maybe it's time the world knew." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Unless you and Dad give me what I want." Music grows darker, pulse-like beat. I stepped back, tears blurring my vision. "What do you want?" He smiled slowly. "Everything." And in that moment, I realized this wasn't about money. This was about revenge. He hated us for loving Richard more, for the life he thought we stole from him, and now he wanted to take everything back. That night, I told Henry everything. We sat in silence, the rain tapping against the window. I could feel his spirit breaking. He whispered, "Maybe this is what I deserve." I took his hand. "No, you don't deserve to die for a mistake." He looked at me sadly. "I'm not sure that's true." Silence. Then faint wind. A week later, Damien invited us on a family hike. He said he wanted to talk. Fresh air, good views, a chance to make peace, he said. I wanted to say no. Every instinct in my body told me not to go. But Henry looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Maybe it's time we end this." And so, we agreed. I didn't know it then, but that hike would be our last. When I woke up, everything was white. The ceiling, the sheets, the bandages. For a moment, I didn't know where I was, or if I was even alive. Then the pain reminded me. Pain everywhere. In my ribs, my legs, my heart. I tried to speak, but all that came out was a whisper. "Henry." No one answered. A nurse walked in, smiling kindly. "Oh good, you're awake," she said softly. Where's my husband?" I asked. Her smile faded. She hesitated. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Collins. He didn't make it." The words hit harder than the fall. I felt something shatter inside me. She tried to comfort me, but I couldn't hear her. All I could hear was the sound of my husband's last breath echoing in my mind. Soft piano fades in, melancholy tone. They told me I'd been unconscious for 2 days, that a couple had found me on a lower ridge, that I was lucky to be alive. "Do you remember what happened?" the detective asked later, notebook in hand. I stared at him. I wanted to scream the truth. My son pushed us, but then I saw Damien standing behind the detective, in the hallway, his arm around Melissa, his face pale and grief-stricken. When our eyes met, he mouthed one word, "Don't." He looked every bit the devastated son, clothes rumpled, eyes red, voice shaking. "Officer," he said, "my parents were just hiking. It was supposed to be a peaceful day. My dad, he slipped." He glanced at me, and Mom tried to save him. She almost died doing it. The detective nodded, scribbling in his notebook. A tragic accident. The story made perfect sense. And I, lying there, too weak to move, couldn't prove otherwise. After they left, Damien came to my bedside. He waited until the room was empty. "Mom," he said softly, pulling up a chair. He reached for my hand. I tried to pull away, but my arm was too heavy. He leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. You're alive. That's good. I didn't expect that. My throat tightened. Why? He smiled faintly. Because now you get to live with what you've done. Music, faint pulse-like beat under dialogue. Damien, why? Why would you do this? I whispered. He tilted his head, almost amused. You still don't get it, do you? You and Dad destroyed this family. You killed Richard and then pretended you didn't. Tears filled my eyes. Your father tried to save him. Save him. He cut me off. He killed him, and you covered it up. I shook my head weakly. No, Damien, that's not true. He leaned closer, his face twisting with years of hatred. You both let me grow up in that house of lies. You made me live in the shadow of a dead brother, your perfect son. Every day I looked at his pictures on the wall. Every birthday, you cried for him, not for me. He slammed his hand on the bed rail, making me flinch. Well, now you can cry for real. Heart monitor beeps faster. I stared at him, horrified. You murdered your father. He smiled coldly. Maybe, but don't worry, Mom. You'll see him soon enough. Then he stood, straightened his jacket, and left the room just as Melissa walked in with flowers. Sound, door opened softly. Faint footsteps. Hi, Mom, she said sweetly. She set the flowers down by the bed and adjusted my blanket. I wanted to scream, to hit her, to tear that smile off her face, but my body wouldn't move. She leaned in, her perfume sharp and sweet. You really scared us, she said softly. We thought we'd lost you. Her voice was calm, too calm. Don't worry, she added with a faint smirk. Damien's handling everything, the insurance, the funeral, the will. You don't have to think about a thing. And then she kissed my forehead like I was a child. I closed my eyes, pretending to sleep, so she wouldn't see the rage burning in them. Sound fades, hospital night ambience, rain outside that night. I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Henry's face, the way his eyes faded as he said those last words. Tell the truth, but how? I was trapped, broken, drugged, powerless, until a whisper changed everything. Soft creak of a door, footsteps approached. It was near midnight when I heard the door open again. A different voice this time, soft, hesitant. Mrs. Collins. I turned my head slightly. It was Nurse Leela, a young woman who had been on shift the last 2 nights. She looked nervous. I probably shouldn't say this, she whispered, but your son came in earlier. He asked if we could increase your sedatives. Said you were having delusions. My blood ran cold. What? She nodded quickly. I didn't change anything, don't worry. But he told the doctor that you're confused, that you've been saying strange things about the accident. She leaned closer. Mrs. Collins, is there something you need to tell me? Soft piano note, spark of hope. I could barely speak. My throat was dry, my lips cracked, but I whispered the truth anyway. My son, he killed my husband. He tried to kill me. Her eyes widened. Oh my God, please, I begged. Don't tell him I said that. Just help me. I need proof. She hesitated, then nodded. I'll try. And then she slipped out, leaving me with a flicker of hope in the darkness. Clock ticking. Time passes. The next morning, I woke to find Damien sitting in the chair again. He smiled when I opened my eyes. Good morning, Mom. You look better. He poured me water from the bedside jug and held it out. Drink. I stared at it. Then I saw it, a faint white residue at the bottom of the cup. My heart stopped. I'm not thirsty, I said quickly. His smile didn't fade. You should. You need your strength. He held the cup closer. That's when Nurse Lila entered. Mr. Collins, visiting hours are over. Damien's smile stiffened. He set the cup down slowly. Of course, just wanted to check on Mom. He stood, patted my shoulder gently, and whispered, rest well, I'll be back tonight. Then he left. Low tension hum, heartbeat sound under narration. As soon as the door closed, Lila rushed to my side. I saw that, she whispered. I'll test it. She slipped the cup into her bag and left quickly. That was the first time I allowed myself to cry, not out of fear, but out of fragile, desperate relief. Someone finally believed me. Hours passed. When she returned, her face was pale. There's something in it, she said. A sedative strong enough to stop your heart if you were weak. I swallowed hard. We have to tell the police. She nodded. I already did, quietly. A detective will come by this afternoon. Just act normal until then. But Damien was always one step ahead. Soft thunder rolls outside. Dark tension builds. He came back early. Too early. Melissa was with him this time. They brought flowers again. Lilies, Henry's favorite. Damien smiled at the nurse. Just a quick visit, please. Lila hesitated, then nodded reluctantly and left the room, glancing back at me. The door closed. The air grew heavy. Melissa moved to the window, shutting the blinds. Damien sat beside me, his hand on the bed rail. You've been busy, he said softly. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? He smiled faintly. Talking to nurses, making accusations. You always loved your stories, didn't you? He leaned closer. Let's make sure this one ends the right way. He reached for the cup on the bedside table. I brought you something better this time, he said, pouring clear liquid from a small vial. Damien, please, I whispered. You don't have to do this. He smiled sadly. I already did. He lifted the cup, but before he could make me drink, the door burst open. Mr. Collins, step away from her. It was Detective Harris, the same one from before, and Nurse Leela, right behind him. Damien froze. For the first time, I saw fear flicker across his face. They took the cup. They tested it. It was poison. Damien tried to talk his way out. Said it was a mistake. That he'd brought herbal drops from home. But it was over. Melissa tried to run. She didn't get far. Within an hour, they were both in custody. I thought it was done. That I could finally rest. That Henry's death would mean something. But I was wrong. 2 days later, the detective came back to see me. He looked uneasy. Mrs. Collins, he said gently, we ran the tests. The substance in your system was the same one found in your husband's blood, but he hesitated. But the evidence is gone. I frowned. What do you mean? He sighed. Someone broke into the evidence room last night. The vials, the files, all destroyed. The case won't hold. My heart sank. Are you saying they'll go free? He nodded slowly. They're already out on bail. I stared out the window, watching the gray sky. I felt hollow. Everything, all the pain, all the truth, erased again, just like Richard, just like Henry, the perfect family, buried under perfect lies. Soft, whispered tone.com. But chilling that night, I made a decision. If the law couldn't bring justice, I would, because when a mother's love turns to grief, there's nothing more dangerous. They said I should go home, that I was stable. But how do you go home when your whole life died there? The house on Maple Street looked exactly the same. The flowers I'd planted were still blooming. Henry's tools were still hanging neatly on the wall. Everything was in its place, except him. The day after I came back, a letter arrived. No return address, just my name, written in Damien's handwriting. Inside, one line, you should have stayed quiet. No threat, no apology. Just a reminder that he was free and watching. Music deepens, lower piano notes for weeks. I lived like a ghost. Neighbors brought food. I smiled, nodded, said I was fine. But inside, I was plotting. Henry had left behind a trail, his workshop ledgers, camera, and a small USB drive I'd found in his desk drawer. When I opened it, my hands shook. Inside were pictures, copies of our bank transactions, and a video Henry must have recorded weeks before he died. Henry video, voice crackling. If you're seeing this, Hilda, it means Damien found out. He knows what I did to Richard, and he won't forgive us. My breath caught. Henry video continues. I never meant to hurt him. It was an accident. Richard fell. I tried to save him, but he hit the rocks before I could reach him. I told Damien the truth that night. He said he understood, but I saw it in his eyes. He didn't. The screen went dark. I fell to my knees. Henry had confessed to Damien, and that was the day the plan to destroy us was born. Sound, low thunder rumble. I took the USB to the police. They filed it away, promised to reevaluate the case, but weeks passed. Nothing changed. Then, one afternoon, I saw them, Damien and Melissa, walking out of the courthouse, hand in hand, smiling, free. The world blurred. All I could hear was Henry's voice. Tell the truth. That night, I drove. No destination, no plan, just the road and the rain. But the road led me where it always did. The gorge, the same place where Richard fell, where Henry died, where Damien had tried to kill me. I stopped the car and stepped out into the cold wind, and there he was, standing by the edge, as if he'd been waiting. Hello, Mom, Damien said softly. Beautiful night, isn't it? The moonlight glowed off the wet rocks. He looked older, harder. There was no remorse in his eyes, only a dark calm. Why are you here? I asked. He shrugged. Same reason you are, closure. I saw the video. I said, your father told you the truth. He was trying to make it right. He laughed, a cold, broken sound. Right? He killed Richard. He lied for 25 years. You stood beside him and pretended nothing happened. Do you know what that does to a child? Damien, please, no. He stepped closer. You don't get to plead now. You had a chance to tell the truth when it mattered. Instead, you made me grow up in his shadow. Do you know how many times you called me by his name? I shook my head, tears falling. I'm sorry. He smiled sadly. You're about to be. He took a step toward me, but this time, I didn't back away. Do it, I said quietly. Finish what you started. But know this, your father loved you. And so do I, no matter what you've become. He froze. For a second, I saw it, the boy he used to be. Then his jaw tightened. You don't get to forgive me. He lunged. Sound struggle, shoes sliding on gravel, wind howling. He grabbed my arms. We struggled near the edge. The ground was slick with rain. I slipped for a moment. His hands tightened on my shoulders, as if to pull me back. And then I heard Henry's voice again. Tell the truth. So I did. I looked into Damien's eyes and whispered, it was me. He stared at me, confused. What? I swallowed hard. It wasn't your father who killed Richard. It was me. I was the one who pushed him. He was hurting you again, and I just wanted him to stop. Henry found me afterward and took the blame to protect me. Damien froze. The rage in his eyes flickered, then turned to horror. You're lying, he whispered. No, I said. I've lied all my life, but not now. He stumbled back, shaking his head, muttering, no, no, no. His heel hit the edge of the cliff. For a heartbeat. Time stopped, then he fell. I stood there for a long time, the wind cold on my face. I had told the truth, and it had destroyed everything. Soft music returns, slow violin melody. The police called it an accident, just like Richard, just like Henry. 3 men, 3 falls, 3 stories, buried under rock and rain. They never asked for my side. Maybe they knew better. Maybe some truths are meant to die with us. Voice softens to whisper. Sometimes I walk to the porch and look at the trail in the distance. The wind sounds like their voices. Henry's steady, Richard's bright, Damien's broken. People say justice is a light, but I think it's a mirror, and when you look into it long enough, you only see yourself. Hilda softly. My name is Hilda Collins. I lost my family to lies, and in the end, the truth pushed us all over the edge.